Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Quiet Battle Podcast, episode number 3. And joining me today, a very special guest. Her name is Dani Clark. Welcome to the podcast.
Lovely. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure to have people on to share their stories when it comes to mental illness. So, first of all, we'll start talking about mental health. So, what does mental health mean to you when someone says to you, let's talk about your mental health? What does mental health mean to you?
So for me, it's all about how a person's feeling. And I've known obviously from my personal experience, my friends' experiences, is a lot of people don't feel comfortable like talking about it or they don't feel
Yeah.
safe speaking about it.
Yeah.
So for me, the one thing I always like to do is if we're like in a crowd of people, I'll like take them away. I'll be like, just even if I don't like speak back, if that makes sense, just
Yeah.
someone to listen. But I feel like it needs to be like more open, more conversations. It does mean a lot to me because obviously a lot what I've been through in my life, and like I say, what I see a
Yeah.
lot of my friends going through at the moment.
Absolutely, and I think we all have mental health anyway, but some of us just struggle with it a lot more because of maybe what we've gone through in the past. But why do you think mental health is still a taboo subject for people to talk about? Why do you think they avoid that conversation?
I do believe sometimes social media doesn't always help. Just because of when I go through, you see people obviously telling their stories, telling them how they feel.
Yeah.
The way people can be so cruel and just shut people down. And
Mhm.
it's the same I've found it in like some social environments or some working environments. It's you hear people wanting to speak about it or open up about it,
Yeah.
but then sometimes they're either shut down or not even listened to, or they'll go on speaking about something else and not even acknowledge what that person's going through, what they're trying to say.
Yeah. It's that stigma and discrimination that people fear. But why do you think that stigma still exists? I think mental health is still. I know there are a lot of people talking about it on social media, but I don't think there's enough of real people talking about it who's got lived experience. Is it just the fear of what's coming back at them, the negativity, or is there something more sinister involved in the stigma?
For myself, like I say, with people that I've spoken in regards to mine or hearing of others, it's sometimes I don't think people fully understand in regards to mental health,
Yeah.
which I do always sit there and say, do you know what? That's okay. Because sometimes if you haven't experienced it yourself, it can sometimes be quite hard to understand.
Yeah.
Um, but I always sit there at the same time as well, and I'm like, if you're not sure, like you can do research, you can listen. There's so much now in which you can either read up or like we're doing podcasts or
Yeah.
socials, anything at all. A lot of people now I find are slowly opening up and beginning to share on their stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I find with a lot of it. It's just people just have a trouble understanding at times.
And why are mental health conversations so important in 2026?
So important.
Yeah, I think it's recognizing those thoughts and feelings and understanding that, you don't have to go through them alone. But I think a lot of things on social media have become a trend, and I think mental health has become a trend for a lot of influencers. So they just jump on the bandwagon when in fact they're doing more harm than good. There should be more people talking about real lived experience and how hard mental health is if you're really struggling. Yeah, I can resonate with that because in 2022 when I had my mental breakdown and I tried to end my life twice, a
Mm.
part of me died in 2022, but through therapy and counseling, a new part of me was born, a new sense of self. So I think that's a very relatable thing for me because you might not go in the same person, you'll come out someone stronger though.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think. And it's through all the different paths and storms that I've been through in life, I think that's also helped create who I am today. Because it was like at school, I was a complete mouse, wouldn't
Hmm.
talk, didn't have many friends. But then as I've got older, I've learned to stand up for myself more. It's especially obviously after losing a parent, it's I've had to like mature quite quickly and I've had to grow and I've had to learn about life and actually what it is to run a home car, have a job. So a lot of different paths have taken, a lot of storms have come my way, but it
Yeah.
has each time it's just shown me a different part that's built myself stronger, which is also why as well is I got on my back I have
Yeah.
a dream catcher, but it's a tattoo with a phoenix because I feel like I
Okay.
had to kill off the old me to become the me I am
Yeah,
now.
like rise from the ashes, so to speak,
Exactly, yeah.
like a phoenix. And again, that makes total sense to me because I was in that place of I had a full mental breakdown. I was the suicide attempts, and then there was the diagnosis that I had of complex PTSD, ADHD disorder, and clinical depression. So
Mm.
over the last since 2022, I've been battling all of those things. It's also taught me a lot as well, and it's taught me about who I am today. And I was never able to talk about mental health like I am now with you. I would always stutter. I couldn't even put conversations together or sentences. That's how closed off I was. But talking about it through therapy and counseling really helped me improve my communication skills. And that's why I talk about it on YouTube and TikTok, because I know the importance of opening up and not experiencing those dark thoughts or those intrusive thoughts on your own.
Exactly, I totally agree. Because with myself, as a lot of my friends and family will say, is I'm so used to bottling everything up and keeping everything in. And then the one thing I did as well is I used alcohol to mask how I was feeling,
Hmm.
which I learned in time like that was not the right thing to do because the way I was behaving, it just wasn't right. And then I'd be
Yeah.
obviously having the crying spells. But yeah, for me, it was just, yeah, each time I went through one of them storms, it was just picking myself up, being
Hmm.
better. And yeah, same when I was in my therapy sessions, that's what I found easier. I found it quite easier to talk to someone I didn't know,
Hmm.
which then, like what done with yourself is that helps me bring out the confidence to actually speak to my friends and like loved ones in
Yeah.
regards to anything that I'm feeling. So now I speak more than I do actually shutting it out.
Yeah, and I think we all learn that, and I think once people understand that, once they've accepted they need help, because acceptance is the first part of it. You need to
Yeah.
accept that you can't do this alone. Once you've accepted that help, you can then continue to move forward and engage in the therapy. If you're not going to allow the therapist to do their work, you have to be open to change and you have to be open to new ways of thinking.
Exactly, that's what I also thought because that's what my therapist said as well. Because it was because I went for obviously stage self harming as well. It wasn't like just sitting there speaking with a therapist. I
Yeah.
also went through, if I got it right, is it converse behaviour therapy or something like that? I think it's worded as. We also went through that to also, if I had like an urge or a feeling, what else could I be doing? It could be as simple as just playing with a headband in your hand
Yeah.
or something like that.
That's CBT.
So that's it. Yes, that's the one. Yeah,
Cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah, I've
that's
had
the
that in
one.
the
Yeah.
past. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they do some great work. So, people don't have to go through this alone anymore. Okay. Have you experienced any stigma when it comes to mental health? When you've gone to maybe get some help and the doctors weren't so helpful, or, anything like that?
So, I mean, dogs have always been quite helpful for myself. For, I mean, myself, I did experience it through a workplace. It was kind of, I was speaking about my mental health, saying about my struggles, but they just turned around and made everything my fault, it felt like,
Yeah.
which I was a bit like, I didn't
Hmm.
choose to be like this, but this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And it was just everything that I felt was just like, well, you need to pull yourself together and get together,
Mm.
sorry, and get on with it.
Yeah.
Which I'm a bit like, that's not the right thing you should be doing. You should be supporting me.
Yeah.
And then that's when I went into a different company. They were quite a bigger company. They actually had mental health first aiders there, and actually they were really supportive and really helpful. But yeah, before that, I was ending up coming like home crying every night,
Hmm.
feeling really guilty, being like, why am I like this? Why
Yeah.
can't I stop being like this?
You start feeling like a burden, don't you? You start feeling
Exactly,
like
yeah.
you're burdening everyone else with this invisible illness that they can't see. But that's what it is. Mental illness is invisible. They can't see it, but it doesn't mean that war is not going on inside your mind.
Exactly. And it'll get to points where I would come into the office and then I'm sitting on my own and then I'm going off to lunch on my own. And then everyone's like my friends who I made there were like, are you okay? And I was like, I just need to be by myself. Like, as you've said, I felt like a burden to the office and
Yeah.
like the workplace. So I was like, if I go off and be by myself, then I'm not troubling anybody. I'm just going to come in, do my work, go home, which obviously isn't the healthiest thing to be doing.
No.
But I just thought for me to stop obviously feeling that way, even though it didn't at the same time,
Yeah.
yeah, it just felt like a very toxic environment to be in.
And I think that's when we start isolating ourselves from the world and we start shutting people out and saying, no, I'm not anyone else. Help me with this. I'm going to deal with it myself. But ultimately, you know you can't, because inside you're broken.
Exactly. And I always sit there and say as well, I don't know if it's Aquarius trait that I am or if it's just me who I am. It's, yeah, I never ask for help. I'm still sometimes struggling how to ask for help, but I've got better. But yeah, and I would just be like, I'm just going to go off, do my, like, by myself, do my own thing, like, not be around anybody. It was kind of like my friend said without realizing it, it's kind of like you're pushing them away, but you're not realizing you're pushing them away
Mm.
because all they want to do is help and be supportive. But then I'm just putting that barrier up and isolation, being like, no, it's fine. Like I can
Mhm.
do this like by myself, basically. I don't need
Yeah.
anyone with me.
Yeah, I think it makes your mind with those intrusive thoughts makes you feel like you need to do this alone. No one can help you. No one's going to help you. No one can support you. This is true. This is what you are. This is what's happened to you. And all those intrusive thoughts start taking over. And then that inner critic that you have, that we all have, starts to become very powerful. And then it starts to just chuck these negative thoughts at you. And then you just get lost in that sort of mess.
I was
Yeah.
just exactly. That's what I said to my friend who's obviously not been having the greatest time since, well, probably not the best words to use, but hasn't been her best self since obviously a very long time. And that's what I've said to her. I said, you are at your rock bottom. I've been at this rock bottom, and it is the only way is up. And she has, luckily enough, got a very, including myself, a very supportive network around her. We're all just there for her, helping her out. But yeah, I said to her exact same thing, like, you've hit your rock bottom. Now let's get you like working up, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's what I would tell my clients because in my professional life, before the suicide attempts and before the mental breakdown, I was, a quite successful high level retail manager, but I didn't want to go back to that. I wasn't happy. I ended up having the breakdown, then the suicide attempts happened. But through therapy and counseling, I developed a passion of wanting to help people in my position. But I didn't want to be a therapist or a counselor because of the triggers. So I thought to myself, what can you do to help people? And then I researched life coaching and I went and got 6 diplomas in life coaching and launched my life coaching business in February this year. And I will always tell the people that I've coached, and I have told them this, your life starts on the other side of your comfort zone. So take
Mm.
yourself out of your comfort zone and just move forward.
Absolutely, I agree. And it's like with my friends and family, they always come and speak to me about anything like going on in life because they're like, you've just experienced so much of it, like highs, lows. And they always say, we like to hear Danny's words of wisdom, we call, which they find it quite inspirational, quite helpful. Which actually, I did say to my friends, I was at a barbecue last weekend, and I did say that I feel like becoming like a motivational speaker because I feel like it will really help people. But again, with me, I don't know where to start on that. So that's obviously why I also wanted to do the podcast today to obviously
Mm,
have the discussion with you, bring up about mental health, obviously my
yeah.
journey,
But
help
you
people.
have that experience because 100% of your bad days you survived because we're
Yeah,
here. We're here talking today. And if you feel like that in your heart that you want to help people, and motivational speaking is massive on social media. Obviously, there's a lot of competition everywhere, and I'm finding that with trying to grow my life coaching business as well. But
yeah,
because I've got lived experience of mental illness and I have a diagnosis, that's what I think some of my clients can relate to me because I have mental illness and I'm still going through mental illness. There's very specific treatment for complex PTSD called EMDR treatment, but the
mm,
waiting list in the UK is shockingly long. And I've been suffering with it for since 2022, and I'm still 18 months away from being at the top of the list to get that treatment. So, but having maybe a motivational speaker that someone can relate to on social media can be important while they're waiting for those types of treatment. So, I mean, you've got the experience, you've got the life experience of coming through these things. Why not try that? You know?
yeah. Because I've said to myself, it's kind of like I need to plan it out a bit of like how I would create like each episode really. But obviously with my TikTok, I've got like 23,500 likes. I've got just over 3,000 followers, so it's building up. I think that's only been like the last like few years, but it's building up a very good platform. And as you can see with the likes, obviously people are liking my content, obviously what I bring out. And like I say, whether I'm doing a get ready with me, I'm speaking about my health right now, or I'm just talking about anything really, I always make sure like it's real and authentic.
Yeah, I think people are able to spot people who are fake, and especially on social media. And people are just swiping these days because it's like the doom scroll. You've got to be able to stand out. But if your subject matter that you're talking about is emotive and it's important and it's motivational, people can relate to that. I shared my journey the last 4 years on TikTok. I've got 31,000 followers, and I've met and talked to so many people who have said, Thank you for your honest content. Thank you for, being blunt, because I am quite blunt with the suicide attempts.
Yeah.
I done that to myself. I can't change that. I've done that, and I prefer to be as honest as I can about how
Mhm.
hard your mental health journey will be. But there is hope. Recovery is possible because we're talking about it today, and I'm doing these videos. They've seen the progression over the last 4 years on YouTube and TikTok. So recovery is possible, and I think a lot of people don't realize it's possible until they see it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's with the friends that I've got now. Like I said, I
Yeah,
didn't really have any at school. I met them through like a friend who kind of like left the group basically many years ago.
yeah,
But it's they've only ever seen me say after my mum passed. I never saw anything that happened before. So I've always sat there and said to them, I feel like they've never seen me like truly happy because when they came into my life was literally the starting of the worst time of my life, and that's when my mental health obviously really took its
yeah,
toll. And then following that, going into a toxic relationship also obviously didn't help because there was obviously self harming involved in
yeah,
there. Obviously, after mum, that's when I had my suicide attempt. And then I've just found the last 10 years, like after that relationship, I've kept myself single because I've wanted to. When, as the saying goes, I feel like it's so cliche, but it's obviously men have come into my life,
yeah,
but there's a reason I'm still single because they have shown me why I still am.
yeah. I
So,
understand.
so yeah, so my family obviously seen me before, but my friends that I have now, I feel like yeah, they've never seen me truly happy. They've just seen the bad parts of my life. But there's been some good, but I feel like the majority of it's been a bit bad.
Yeah, but I think that's what people tend to highlight is the bad stuff all the time.
Mm.
But all that trauma has made you resilient, and that's why you're able to think about being a motivational speaker. And if that is something that you wanted to do, then either through a therapist or counselor, you could get to that point. You could be confident enough to do that and build your own brand of motivational speaking,
Mm.
because a lot of people talk about it but haven't got the real life experience. You have, and it's documented. It can't be argued with. You have a
Yeah,
diagnosis, just like I have a diagnosis. You have one. So people can relate to that because they know what you've been through. They know you've got a diagnosis. So they know you're telling the truth rather than someone who is just jumping on the trend of mental health. Or it's Mental Health Awareness Month this month. Let's make some videos on that. It doesn't come across as authentic and genuine. But I think if people do watch your videos and my videos, I think we're slowly building up a following of people who are suffering in silence, but they've found hope in your content and my content. And I
yeah,
think people like myself and yourself, who are real and are as honest as it comes with mental health, I think that's what people are relating to.
exactly. And I totally agree. Because it's a bit like I always sit there and thinking that as you see these influencers selling these beauty products, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh my God, try this, is absolutely amazing.
yeah,
They've got their bodies or their how they look either through paying for expensive PTs, I always said, and think, or you've had work done. It's like you've
yeah.
actually not used the product. Whereas, like what you've said, where you see people jumping on about mental health, it's they've probably not even had these experiences themselves, and you can kind of see where the fakeness lies from the
Yeah,
realness.
yeah.
And it's a bit like I've probably just seen this video, so I'm just going to recreate it myself. Whereas we've got us two, and obviously many others out there, we've got our own stories, and you can.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when people speak as well, a lot of people say they can see in my eye a lot of my feeling. But then I also sit there, like I say, like you can hear the tone of how people speak. Even on a
Hmm.
video, you can see like people's body languages. So that's how I always say. That's how I feel like I can always put out from the fake people to the real people.
Yeah, I think because one of what, and again, I discussed this with my life coaching clients as well. A lot of what people are afraid of in life is change, but also facing themselves and
Mm.
maybe admitting mistakes they might have made in the past, or revisiting regrets in a because I think sometimes in life you have to be able to revisit the past and deal with things to be able to move forward. But a lot of people don't want to face their feelings. They don't want to face the trauma, so they project their insecurities and fears onto other people by being negative in their comments. But I think facing yourself, and like I've made many mistakes in life. If I could go back and change some of them, I would. But we all make wrong choices in life. We all make mistakes. But they're just lessons. They're not life sentences. I don't have to keep beating myself up about a wrong decision I made, 10 years ago or whatever it may be. I use now my past as lessons to be better in the future going forward. And I think once people understand that, if they can face themselves and their own insecurities and their own flaws, then they can face anything in life, because that's the hardest thing you'll ever have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I always think about myself is I do hold a lot of guilt with obviously what happened with my mum. I was sort of, well, I know we're going into that probably more detail soon, but I was young girl of 20. She was the only parent I ever had. That year I'd just broken up from the first love of my life. You know, you're six, no, yeah, it was 16 to 20 we were together. So obviously I was dealing with that. And then I just sit there thinking, I could have been a better daughter. I probably could have taken care of her better. And after everything happened, it was more like I see what people mean now by family comes first.
Yeah.
And then with that, obviously, that's where my mindset changed on that part. And then I do always say to my friends and family, I'm very honest with it. I'm always like, the person I am now, I wish I was back then. But the only reason I'm the person I am now is because I've had to go through all these storms,
Mhm.
like I call them, to building that resilience, to work on me,
Mhm.
to have the strength of who I am now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in your darkest hour is when sometimes you can see the best of yourself, and you know that everything that you've been through and everything that you've survived has made you who you are today. And that can't be taken away from you. You've done that. You've survived that. And I think that's something you should be massively proud of.
I've been through. I'll
Yeah.
be expecting to say it when I'm like 70, 80 years old, but yeah, it just feels like it's been a lot. But then again, it's a lot of teachings for me, but there's also a lot that I can also help and teach with others as well, and like give their advice. Like I say, Danny's words of wisdom, give the advice, give them help, give them support.
Which is a good name for the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
That's what I'm here
that is a
today.
good name, a good and catchy name for the podcast. So, I mean,
Yeah,
if you're even just thinking about that, then I would do it, because that's what makes you happy. And I think another thing that I always tell the people I work with, if you can have three things in your life going forward, then you're gonna go far. That's purpose, clarity, and perspective. If you can gain those three things in your life, then you can go as far as your imagination wants to take you. And if you think your purpose is helping people, then go for it. And if you get clarity on that by the comments from the videos that you put out, the positive comments, that's clarity that people want to see this content. And the perspective is, I'm looking at life in a different way, and now I'm helping people. That's your perspective on life. It's not negative anymore, it's positive. I'm going to use this negative stuff to create something positive. I think put if you can manifest those three things into your life, then you're going to go as far as your imagination wants to take you.
exactly. And that's why I sit there and basically say with my friends, that's why they come and always speak to me of like anything that's going on in their lives, basically, like whether they've had loss, success, like happiness, anything like that, anything that's going on, even if they got trouble with the boyfriends or anything,
Yeah.
they're always like, "Oh, we just want to come speak to you, Danny." Because it's like, even if you don't like say anything to us, we just know you're there to listen. And they said the one thing about you is, which I actually haven't mentioned at all yet in this podcast, is you don't judge. Is you just do not judge. You're just there, and whatever I say, you just listen to. Like I said, you either give feedback or like we have a discussion about it, or you just. I'm sorry. And I say sometimes the reason is of where I just listen is because sometimes you don't always need someone to talk back. You just need someone to hear you, and so
Mhm.
you're expressing it out. You're not holding it in, because that's what I found the worst things. I just let a lot of it bottle up. It, like I said, it was those times when I go out partying or even during the week, like I'll be drinking. It's kind of like when I'm not in a sober head, shall we say, that's when all them emotions easily came out.
Yeah. And I think the fact that you're able to recognize that is shows your emotional intelligence and how far you've come with recognizing those types of feelings and those things that you might have been self-sabotaging yourself with, because we all do that as well. We all talk ourselves out of doing something or going somewhere. I don't feel like doing that today. I'm not going to do it. Or yes, I'll come on. Yes, I'll do this video, but then not show up. I think if you
Yeah,
start showing up for yourself every single day, no matter what, you'll learn to take control back of your life. Because your thoughts and your feelings, you can't stop them, but you can control them, because they're just that. They're thoughts and feelings. They're not facts. The facts are you've survived it. The facts are you are here today. So you're stronger than those thoughts and feelings.
Exactly. And it's I sit there and I say, if I do have one of my moments, as I call them blips. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm just having a blip. I know it's gonna pass. It's not gonna be like this forever. It's just that something's happened to trigger something. Like, and as I say, sometimes when I suppress it down, I sometimes still do a bit now. Like
Hmm.
I'm still obviously learning and growing as you do each day. But then it's kind of like I suppress it out, and then I'm like, I'm gonna have my moment, but it's fine. Or as I say, it's my crown's a bit crooked, but then I'll straighten it up in a minute, and I'll go out holding my head with pride, like I've got this, I'm fine, and
Hmm.
just build more resilience onto it.
Yeah, and you've got the evidence to back those theories up because you've already survived it. So
Yeah.
tough times don't last forever, but tough people do. And I think,
I'm a survivor. I got to
mm,
work through this. It's going to be absolutely fine. You're just having obviously that time. And sometimes, even now, like I'll have like things arranged with friends.
yeah,
And then last minute, I'm like, oh, sorry, like I'm not really in the mood. So I kind of like cancel it off,
yeah,
which I did a couple of times with a group of girl mates that I've got.
yeah,
And we each month we arrange obviously to see one another. But there was a couple of months, this is what I mean, it's when I was going through the beginning of my again woman's health journey because it's like I've got they're saying that I have PCOS, which is now PMOs, and they're kind of like backtracking on it, but I'm still going through all these testings. And I did be honest, and that's why I've done the videos recently, and I've said my mental health like the last month hasn't been the greatest, maybe the last couple of months, because it's I've got fibromyalgia as well, so it feels like you've got like triple the
yeah,
amount of pain going on, and it's like you still ain't got answers. You go for blood tests every couple of months, but it's I'll get to a point and I'll be like, I'm really not feeling it. And I might even
hmm,
cancel like 10 minutes before I'm meant to walk out the door.
yeah,
But then what I love about them all as well is like what we said is when I previously would cancel, people would be like, oh, for God's sake, like they'd have a really bad attitude towards it. So I never felt like doing it. I just turn up for the sake of it, and
yeah,
then I'll just be like, I'm just gonna force myself to get through this.
yeah.
And people could see I weren't enjoying myself. Then I'll go home and have my moments. But it's with obviously all the people that I've got now in my life, they're a bit like, that's okay, that's fine, we'll sort it out for another time, like as long as you're all right. And then they'll always like phone me, check up on me later because they know something's not right, if that makes sense, if I
Yeah,
cancel something that short.
yeah.
So yeah, real strong
But I
support
think that's
network.
such a that's just social anxiety, isn't it?
Yeah,
Sometimes you're in fight or flight mode, and you might feel unsafe if you're in a public place, something that you can't control, or you're somewhere that you can't control, and that's where social anxiety kicks in. So you say, no, I'm not going. I'm gonna protect myself. I'm gonna stay in today. I'm gonna cancel. And I think social anxiety, a lot of people suffer with that. Even people without any sort of mental health disorder, social anxiety can affect anyone because sometimes it's just the fear of actually being somewhere where you're not in control of the environment.
exactly. I've had a friend who's been like that. It got worse. There was a lot going on, as we all know. And it was, I don't know why, but she said, but I just don't feel like going out anywhere. She's like, I just don't want to be near anybody. I feel safer in my home.
Yeah.
And then and which I was like, it's fine. Instead of going out, we'll do like fun stuff inside. So we started to get into like arts and crafts, or we'll make fun dinners, or we'll just sit there and watch loads of films.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like, I'm not quite sure why this keeps happening, but I just don't want to go outside.
I think the mind is a very powerful thing, and
Mm.
if it's in a negative headspace, it can be easy to let it control you. And I think that's where, sometimes when you're in that sort of mindset, you can't think logically, where you can say to yourself, these are thoughts and feelings. They're not actually facts. I'm going to be okay if I go to this place. Because I think we find a lot of the time we're asking ourselves, well, we're saying to ourselves, this is going to go wrong. I can't achieve that. It's never going to happen. But sometimes if we ask ourselves the flip side of that and say, this is going to work, there is going to be something good out of it, and think of it from a positive aspect. I think that's where we can overcome that social anxiety. And I use that formula myself, and I tell myself, oh, I'm going to do this podcast episode today, even though my mind is telling me, not to, and put it off because you've had therapy this morning. No, I use that formula to say to myself, no, this podcast is going to help people. I'm doing it today, and I think that's where the perspective comes in.
Exactly, because that's what I was feeling like a bit last weekend. I was like, I don't really want to go to this barbecue. I was thinking about it, and I was like, no, go and social because if you don't, you'll feel better once you go and socialise. If you're just staying cooped up, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be
Yeah.
like, sometimes get this feeling of like guilt because it's one of my really good like best friend guy mates. He's literally such a sweetheart, and he's always there for everybody through your good, bad. Even if he's got bad stuff going on, he's always there. And I'm also very glad I did turn up because bless him, he made a curry, which is always very nice. His curries.
Oh,
But he said,
absolutely.
but yeah, he said, but I've made it obviously with your dietary requirements. So I've done it just for you. So I was like, oh, I felt even better now for turning up.
Hmm.
So I thought if I didn't, he's gone to all that effort, then I'm going to feel really bad on it. And actually, when I got home, yep, the drive wasn't what I expected. Traffic, M1 closures. But no, when I got home, it's like, yeah, I did feel a bit tired, but I felt good for going. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
glad I don't want to say forced myself, but I'm glad I kind of like was didn't get in my own head and say stay in. I'm glad I actually made the effort and actually went.
I think a lot of people forget the power of kindness.
Yeah,
How a small act of kindness can help someone who suffers with mental illness. You know, with CPTSD, my diagnosis, I suffer with nightmares and flashbacks, generally about the suicide attempts and other traumatic things that have happened in my life in relation to abuse and that sort of thing.
mm.
So the difference between PTSD and complex PTSD is my PTSD is multiple events, whereas PTSD is a singular event. But the it leaves. Imagine having those nightmares and flashbacks every single night that you go to sleep. It can be hard,
Yeah,
but I'm learning to live alongside my mental illness now, and I think people forget how powerful a bit of kindness and a bit of empathy can be to other people. And if someone come up to me in when I was in that sort of headspace and said to me, you know, how are you? I'd feel over the moon just by someone saying to me, how are you? You know, they
yeah.
care. They're showing that they care. And I think as human beings, we all need to do a bit more of that.
Absolutely, I agree. That's one thing as well that I love with my friendship group that I've got is no matter what's going on in someone's lives, everyone's always there for each other. It's I always say that my literally famous line that I give everybody, but it's always very true. It's I'm always at the other end of the phone. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
what time, like day or night, I'm always there. Pick up, call. I'll be literally straight round in a heartbeat. Because yeah, there's one thing is that I've had obviously the experience of being on my own,
Yeah.
and it's I don't want anyone else to feel in that way
No,
because
no.
yeah, I just found it hard to like turn to anyone, speak to anyone because I didn't know who I could trust.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like as long as they've obviously got that with me,
Yeah. I think trust is something that we lose when you suffer with mental illness because you don't know what's real and what's not in your mind. And I think that's where a lot of people lose trust in humanity, and we tend not to believe that they genuinely want to help us. But another thing I would say to people, someone who I was coaching, is it's okay, and it's we're the best versions of ourselves when we're helping others, but never leave yourself behind. Because if you spend too much time helping others and neglecting yourself, you're sabotaging your own health and well-being mentally, because all your power and all your emotion is going into helping that person. But what about your needs? So it's great helping people, and sometimes you're the best version of yourself when you're seeing that help come to fruition, but never leave yourself behind. And that's something I would, say to you is that's amazing that you can do all that for other people, but you're important too, you know?
exactly, yeah. And
Mm.
it's with one of my sisters because she's never had any mental health issues. She said to me straight, she went, a lot of what obviously happened with yourself, I don't really understand it. And because I've got three sisters all together, and with one of my sisters, she is unfortunately suffering with her mental health. It isn't in the greatest place. And my sister was a bit like, what can I do? And I
Hmm.
said, have patience is definitely one thing I always think is I know it's so easy to like want to scream and shout at them. I said, but honestly, just have the patience because they aren't choosing to be as they are. It's just unfortunately how their mind is being at this moment in time, and whether obviously that changes or not changes, it could stay that way for a long time, or it could resolve itself quite
Mm.
quickly. But yeah, I just said to her, I said to have the kindness, just have the patience, and I said, and just be there like for a shoulder to cry on if she needs it.
Yeah, and I think that's the one of the most important things is to understand that just a bit of empathy can go a long way. Just by listening to someone, giving them a compliment, giving them, some sort of encouragement, it can change their day. It honestly can. So now we'll move on to the Q&A session of the podcast. So I'll start with the first question. If you could describe your childhood in one word, what would it be and why?
Oh, in one word, I'm gonna say roller coaster.
Okay.
My reason for that is
Mm-hmm.
because there were highs and there were lows. The highs for me was obviously having a mother who just loved me so much and would literally do anything for me. Low times would be basically where I was like bullied at school. I growing up as a teenager, it was difficult because unfortunately my brother was hooked onto drugs and he'd be out a lot of the weekend. He would steal from me and my mum to basically pay for his, as I would call it, addiction.
Yeah.
And it would just be uncertainty, say, whenever I've been out and coming in, or when he comes in, because there'd always be arguments going on.
Yeah.
But we've grown up as well, like I had like a loving family, so that was always great to have. And then what was even better was when my two younger nieces were born. That was really lovely because we're quite close in age gaps. There's
Yeah.
like 6 years between me and the eldest and 10 between the
Okay.
youngest. Then thinking I would never find love, then obviously I did at 16 with a guy who doesn't even live in this town. So that was really great. But yeah, it was just the struggles that we faced as well, because obviously with a single mum, she was working obviously to look after us both. Her family, it's a very sore subject to me to always talk about. I always get very angry with them. Is I feel like they kind of abandoned her and
Yeah.
they weren't around when she was supportive. So she was also struggling with her own mental health.
Mm-hmm.
But she always made sure me and my brother went for nothing, basically. It's if the kids had the latest phone at school, she'll make sure we have it. Or if the kids got the latest technology, she'll make sure like we'll have it.
Yeah.
Sometimes she'd work till like God knows what time in the evenings just to make sure we had everything possible. But yeah, she was literally like the rock of everything growing up. So she, for me growing up, she was like the soul. She was the best thing ever. And then it was just other bits happening in between.
Well, roller coaster is a good word to describe it. Move on. We'll move on to question two. How did being bullied because of IBS affect the way you saw yourself growing up?
A lot. It affected me a lot. It was basically I would be concerned about things that I ate. I
Hmm.
was always very scared of trying things new
Yeah.
because when obviously I was in year one, my main reason for being bullied was because I went to the toilet and didn't realise, which is number two, went on the carpet. I remember it wasn't the main teacher, but it's like a teacher that helps out in the classroom. She like put me in the toilet and was just shouting at me that I was a dirty girl.
Hmm.
Um, to
Yeah.
the point, yeah, I'd bunk off school at times. But then, yeah, I found it to get in my head quite a lot because also I always sat there and thought, what's wrong with me compared to other people? Because it'll be you're doing food diaries, having to eat these certain foods, avoid these foods, have this medication. Then every year for about, I think it was like 10 years, I'd have to
Yeah.
go Great Ormond Street once a year. And then I remember I was in Guy's Hospital for a couple of nights. So it felt quite confusing when I was growing up and it
Yeah.
felt a bit like what's going on. But it wasn't until I got more into like my later teenage years that I kind of understood actually that's what happened to my body. And that's when I kind of started to be forgiving to myself, being like, it's not my fault. It was just children
Absolutely.
being mean.
Yeah. I think everyone at some point in their life will experience some type of bullying, and I think that's just down to a lack of parenting and educating your child to be kind. But coming through that, obviously, you've gained so much strength as well. So you should be proud of that as well. What was the hardest part of losing your mum?
Real, Realizing that I was alone. That's how it felt,
Mhm.
alone. Because my dad, I call him a sperm donor. He's had nothing to do with me. He's a very confusing man without even knowing him. I can walk past him in the street, wouldn't even know who he is. And yeah, it was very confused because he's like, he wanted his name on birth certificate, but he's never been in my life. That just doesn't work out for me. But it was so growing up, it was obviously my mum, me, my brother, and my sister's two dogs in the house.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, when I lost her, it just became lonely, became very echoey. It just felt like something was completely missing because it's like it's not your mum that's gone, It's like your best friend, it's your rock, it's your soulmate. It's someone who you go to for everything.
Yeah.
And it's, again, doing it now, is I used to be scared of crying about it, but I'm not anymore. Yeah,
It's okay to remember because those memories are what keep you going. And I
exactly.
think life itself is just a culmination of many different memories
Yeah,
which fold into each other. And it's about what we do with these moments and how we hold those memories in within ourselves. And it's those positive memories of your mum being your mum and your dad
yeah,
is a good example to you of how to move forward in your life. And I think her being able to give you that skill set
mm,
is massively important.
exactly. It's like I always sit there and say, like, I'm not daddy's princess, I'm mummy's warrior.
Yeah.
It's, even though she's gone,
Yeah.
I do my best to always live by her morals and her values.
Mm.
And it's because I always feel like, as well, with doing that, it also keeps her alive.
Yeah.
And that's what I found.
Well, yeah, she's still
Um,
alive, living through you now, and she's living through your eyes, and that that sort of kindness and that sort of work ethic she's passed on to you, and you can see that within yourself because of how much you've survived. And if I was your coach, I would tell you that is that 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 overcoming that and using it to move forward. It's such a powerful experience for you to have that and have that in your locker, knowing that you've overcome everything life's thrown at you now, and you're someone better than you were then.
exactly, because that's where it was. So we lost her in November, and I
Yeah,
think the end of November as well. I
yeah,
think there's literally only a week between, obviously, when we had the funeral to her birthday. Um, And then I must have done it in like a drunk blur or something. But then my best friend was like banging on my door, and the next minute I know I've been rushed to hospital. That's obviously when I had my suicide attempt.
yeah.
And it's like things that I said in the hospital. I sat there and was like, I sound crazy, like saying that, because it basically they said to me, because where I lived alone after mum, it was, if I get let home, make
Hmm.
sure the job's done properly in an hour. And they were like, we can't let her go. This was another part, because obviously with my dad, I've obviously got a rejection feeling. And this is where I felt like with my family, I felt some kind of rejection at that time as well, and a burden. Because it was, I understand one of my sisters had to go back to work, sound. Another one lives with her dad, okay. And then another sister, obviously the girls were, my niece is quite young at the time and in school. And it's, well, I'll go get the girls to school in the morning.
Yeah,
Then they were like, oh, well, we'll have to section her then.
yeah,
And then they were like, no, 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 I'll take her. And it's like, why should it have got to that stage for you to take me?
yeah,
Like, I forgive them for it, but I don't forget it. Like, I'm like, because that dug deep. And then it was, yeah, after that, obviously went into like my counselling sessions. But it's, a lot of people ask me, like, why did I do it? And back then I was like, I don't actually know. But when I thought about it, obviously, more over the years, it was just, and I think it took a lot for me to confess it to myself as well.
hmm,
It was, I had a lot of guilt, but I said the pain. I said I couldn't deal with the pain. I said it's
hmm,
hard. We're living in that house. I said the salon that I worked at, my mum knew the owner. She was
yeah,
like, yeah, but I can see my mum sitting in a chair. Like, there was no escape from it. And I said I was just so like tired and I was done and I was just like, I don't even want to like be here right now. I said I just want to shut my eyes and all the pain will
hmm,
just go away. But obviously, I said at that time when I was doing it, it's not that I wanted to die or pass away or anything like that, or I just wanted the pain to stop and I just
yeah.
wanted to sleep.
I think suicide is something which we'll come on to shortly.
Yeah.
Uh, when did you first realize your mental health was becoming a serious problem? At what point did you know, right, I need help here?
I would say when it came to my drinking,
Okay.
because alcohol became my best friend. And alcohol, I felt like it just masked everything. And I was drinking obviously a lot. Every weekend I go out partying. Don't even know how I used to do an apprenticeship wage, but I used to go out partying.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
So then it was kind of like a shock to my system. And then that's when I began my first therapy
Yeah.
sessions, which obviously I found helpful, but it was a lot of some things I didn't really let out when I probably should have done, but I
Yeah.
didn't realise obviously how much they like masked back, and I was a bit
Yeah.
like, ooh. So it's kind of when we was doing that, I kind of didn't finish all my sessions, which I probably should have done because I was a bit like, I don't want to go back into like speaking of my childhood and everything like that there, or I said everything just still feels a bit too raw because it was still a few months after my mum. And then I remember they were trying to obviously put me on antidepressants to try and help, but I don't like taking tablets or even a painkiller for a headache. So I started taking them, and I was
Yeah.
like, actually, I'm not feeling these. And I
Hmm.
think after my suicide attempt, I don't want no tablets around me. I think it's best that they don't.
Yeah.
So then we kind of stopped that, and then that's when they gave like ideas of other things to be doing. So it's like listen to music, or go on a walk, or just do something if that's not what you wanted to do. Like
Yeah.
take your mind off it.
So was it the loss of your mum where the suicidal thoughts and the self-harm entered the picture of your life? Was that the start of the suicidal thoughts and the self-harming? The
Yeah, so the grief of losing my mum was definitely more like the suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
The self harming, I feel like I was torturing myself at that point until obviously I had the doctor's help. We found alternatives. If I'm feeling like I want to cut myself, do anything, do this instead. But it was more of a toxic relationship I got into where the self harming became quite bad.
Yeah.
Because the person that I was with literally seemed all nice at the start, as it does, and then it wasn't anything like physical. It was more mentally,
Yeah.
it's more like emotional. And he always knew I had issues with the way I looked, with my weight, and it'll be, oh, you wear that dress, your belly button looks like a fanny hole. We're out shopping, oh, you look pregnant in that.
Yeah.
Then it'll be at home, I couldn't even take a bath without him peering around the corner looking at me. And I tried so many times to basically end the relationship, and then he's
Yeah.
on my ankle crying, being like, please, I don't want to leave, like, don't make me leave, I'll be better. And it just felt like a roundabout, and I thought, there's no way out of this. And then everything I was feeling like painful, I was just obviously slightly like just having my own time,
It's
like,
like emotional
away.
manipulation, isn't it?
Yeah. And then it got to a point in my mind where I was a bit like, it's either going to be me or him.
Yeah.
I was like, either I'm gonna snap and something will happen to him, or he's gonna make me snap and I'm gonna do it to myself. Yeah, it just got so bad. I put up with like 3.5 years until it was to the point of he. I remember obviously after we went on holiday together, I kind of like booted him out, and then he eventually went, and then we broke up. Then he came back a couple of weeks later. That was just dropped me off some Justin Bieber tickets, and he picked up the rest of his stuff. But
Yeah.
then it was the absolute attitude as well of, oh yeah, because my sister came because she came to drop me off
Yeah.
something. She left. Like there's a red car outside. I said none of my friends are in a red car, and then he was so smug in my flat and was like, "Oh yeah, that's my new girlfriend." I was like, "What?" Because when we broke up anyway, he did say the line of, "Well, if we didn't break up now, I would have broken up with you in the summer anyway."
Yeah.
So it's a bit like what? So I lost a lot of like confidence, self
Yeah.
esteem. My friends and family noticed like I weren't going out as much, or if I
Mhm.
was going out, I was going back to the old Danny off the wires. And then where was it? It'd be times where yeah, say I'm out with them as well, he'd just turn up. And one of my friends, though, one night was just like, no, she's coming out with me. She's staying at mine. Like, see you later.
Yeah.
But he literally turned up at hers the next morning, being like, get in the car. Then yeah, it was absolutely awful. And it's not the flat that I'm living in now.
Yeah.
It was the previous flat that I was in. Actually, going back to your question earlier, this actually probably links in where I wasn't feeling listened to in my mental health.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I was suffering all that time. And so that's your question earlier, which I didn't think of till
Yeah.
now is they didn't listen to my mental health at all. Like it got bad. Even when I weren't with him, I started self harming again,
Yeah.
which led to back to CBT sessions.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like I'm living in a hellhole.
Yeah.
Eventually got out. Obviously, yeah, the rules do change, but obviously the feelings are still there. But that's one thing that's definitely made me resilient and stronger
Yeah.
is getting through that relationship.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of things now. If I see someone being controlling or anything like that, they're all of a sudden I'm triggered. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, whoa, hold on a minute. And then I kind of got my back up with it. And then
Yeah.
I'll probably get involved in stuff I shouldn't get involved in. But at the end of the day, I don't care. If I see something controlling and I don't like it, I'm going to tell you about it.
Well, it's just your experiences taking over, isn't it?
Yeah.
And coming to the forefront. But if you're helping someone, then it's always in good faith. So, how has living with fibromyalgia impacted your daily life and your mental well-being?
It has affected it more than I sometimes let on to my friends and family. I've started out, I mean, I've been diagnosed because, again, it was the reason I have it is because of the doctor said it's because of the trauma I went through in that relationship.
Yeah.
They said it might have happened at a later stage, like later on in life. But obviously, we'll never know because I had symptoms when I was younger. But it's stripped away a lot of independence,
Yeah.
which is very hard for someone who doesn't like asking for help. It's restless nights. It's
Mhm.
even sometimes an effort to get into work. It's not even having. So when you go to sleep and you wake up and you feel so like refreshed.
Yeah.
I forget the last time I even had a waking up like that because most of the time I wake up feeling like I've been hit by like a 10-foot truck or something.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to like preparing food or eating, it's some days I won't even do a meal. I'll just quickly either make a smoothie or if I've got ingredients, I'll just throw like a salad in a bowl together or something.
Yeah.
One thing that I have found hard in the mobility side of it is that sometimes I now go out with like a walking stick if I need support and help. That was very hard to get my head around. That did send me to quite a low place when I
Yeah.
needed that. Well, first of all, started using it because it's like I'm a young woman like who's like 30 with a stick. Like
Yeah.
people are gonna be like, what? Even now when I go out and because obviously I've been successful with a blue badge, but even now when I go out and I park to obviously be close to the stores or nearer to where I need to be, it's you still get the looks, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, of being
Yeah.
like, so what's wrong with you then?
Yeah.
Even though they're not saying it, you can see it. And
Yeah.
it's a bit like, when I first of all was like parking like that, I was a bit like, oh, like, sorry. But now I'm like, actually, no, like, I need this for me.
Mm.
Like, not all disabilities are visible, there is a lot that are invisible.
Yeah.
And it's even when I'm traveling now, I remember I had a bit of an argument with a gentleman on the tube. It was last year. So we know London Ground can get busy. So I have this. It's like a purple lanyard you can get, which says you've got an invisible disability with a badge.
Yeah.
And the seats were all taken, and it was quite squashed. So I was holding on to the pole as like support for me. And then he was a bit like, "Can't you move up?" And I was like, "No." Like my niece was for me. I was like, "I need to be with my carer." And then he kind of like shoved past me, which then jolted me up the train, which obviously didn't help. But I do say to everyone, it's like grief that I feel, but a different type of grief because it's grief for myself. Because it's unfortunately the things that I used to be able to do with such ease, it just feels like an absolute
Yeah.
effort now,
Yeah.
and I can't move. Kind of found it to be is it's kind of like I'm grieving another part of myself that's gone.
Yeah. It's like another challenge in your life, fibromyalgia. Just something, another thing that you're gonna overcome. It's not gonna get you down. So what was your reaction when you discovered that you had been misled about your PCOs? If I said that right. Is that right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, PCOs now known as PMOs because
Yeah.
they found it's something. It's more to like metabolic rage is all I felt. I felt absolute rage,
Yeah.
and I kind of made this across in some of my videos as well. I think one of them I even end up crying in because I've heard women say that doctors don't really listen or they don't take like our health seriously. But I was like, it can't be that bad. That's me being naive to the
Yeah.
situation. I'll be real. It's me being naive. And now experiencing it myself, I was like, this is actually a joke. This is an absolute joke. What annoyed me more as well is like I've said throughout the podcast, is I'm someone who, yes, I'm a bigger girl,
Yeah.
and I've tried to lose weight. I've like tried to do Wegovy. I've tried to do Monjaro, Weight Watchers. I even did a keto diet. Obviously with my IBS, I do follow that as good as I can be. Like with dairy, I've
Yeah.
cut
Yeah.
out a
Yeah.
lot of that. Gluten's a bit hard. I should be better with it, but it's a bit hard. I find it just in everything. But yeah, so I was doing all that, and I've even gone into the doctors being like, oh, I've got back pain, I'm not feeling right, like I've got obviously pains in the lower abdomen area and in the lady
Yeah.
area. I was like, something doesn't feel right. And all the time it's go and lose weight. But then you've had back on my records in 2019, it's saying about PCOs now, PMOs,
Yeah.
and it's like what I said to them, you should know from medical and like knowledge and everything that's gone out there, women who have this, it is struggling to lose weight and you've
Yeah, I
done
think
nothing at
they
all.
they should have your medical history, surely.
Yeah, well, I basically have demanded that, so I've got my medical history now, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna review all of it.
yeah,
And it's my niece, bless her, she's like, I know we shouldn't, but we're gonna. She put everything like Chat GPT of how I was feeling, and to be honest, I feel like I got more out of Chat GPT than the doctors.
yeah,
And it's like this morning I've had to go off and have like another blood test done. And now, because my ultrasounds came back clear, which this is another thing that annoyed me. So I went for my appointment last Friday. She was like, oh, there's no cysts or anything. So maybe you haven't got it. But
yeah,
then you've got all the metabolical sides of it, like the high testosterone, obviously with the facial hairs,
yeah,
the struggling of losing weight, the
yeah.
bloatiness, the pain. And then for me, this is if I was a doctor, I'd be like, I'll refer you to obviously the next step, which is obviously gynae. She turned around and she was just like, do you want to be referred? That to me, I came home Friday so angry. I was like,
Yeah,
you can't be seriously asking me. You
yeah.
should know. So I just said to her, I was like, send me there. So I'm gonna create bless whoever sees me. I am gonna have like some questions, obviously
That
speak about all my
that
symptoms.
reminds me of a video I made on my YouTube channel about my very first mental health assessment. Shocking.
Yeah,
It was like a police interview. There was no empathy, no sympathy. They were interviewing me like I was a criminal. I was disgusted with my first mental health assessment. They refused me help and made my self-harming and suicidal ideation bad. So I can understand that letdown feeling because I went there. I put myself in a vulnerable position. I opened myself up to strangers and denied me help, you know?
yeah, and
And
it's.
similar
Oh,
to what you've gone through.
yeah, and that's what annoyed me even more. What I said to the doctor on Friday, because when I walked in, because I had to phone a complaint at my doctor's, and some women may have heard of it, but there's something out there now called Jess's Laws, which I was just like, I'm throwing that at them as well because I don't feel like you're taking me seriously.
Yeah,
Um, and within 24 hours, I had someone high up on the from the doctors on the phone, and she said, I'm recommending you like a senior GP. So she phoned me, we had the whole conversation. Then I get in Friday so she could see me like face to face. And she went, oh yeah, we hear about your dizziness for your head. And I was like, no, 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 no. I said, recap yourself, everything.
hmm,
I said, we're speaking of that. We're going through my symptoms that I've gone through. We're going through like my ultrasound results. Obviously, there's parts of my medical that I need explaining a bit better to me. Like they said, I've got like, what does fatty liver grade 2 even mean?
yeah,
Which she said, you're miles off it being, if I pronounce it right, it's scoliosis or something where it basically begins to be irreversible. So I was
yeah,
like, that's a good sign. But yeah, I just literally couldn't believe when I walked out. She was like, I'll have some medication for your dizziness. She said,
hmm,
only take it if you need it. And I'm a bit
yeah,
like, okay, well, this is going to affect me like work and driving because in my family, like I'm basically the main driver. No one else
yeah,
really drives. So if me or my car's out of action, they're all a bit stuck unless you want to get an Uber. And then, yeah, I just come out there feeling like so angry. And I still am now, to be honest. Like, I can feel myself boiling with even talking about it. Because it's not, I sit here and I'm thinking, it's not just me that I'm thinking of, it's thinking about all the women out there that's been let down. Then I
oh yeah,
sit there and think about one of my friends. She had issues for a good couple of decades, and it took so much time to find out she was diagnosed with endometriosis,
yeah,
which she's concerned that's actually what I might have, but I can't say yes or no because obviously we need to test it
yeah,
first. Because she said your symptoms align with mine and your journey sounds similar to what I went through. And she said to me, obviously, what tests to push for. So that's what I'm going to speak to Ghana about. But it just makes me so like angry of why, especially where I feel like medicine and technology has come to now. I feel
yeah,
like so much more I feel like could be done. And
yeah,
again, that's why I do my videos. And I'll be honest, the reactions and the responses I've had from the women out there have been absolutely incredible. Like they've all just been so like
yeah,
they,
yeah,
I found some of them I found to be like really helpful. Like some people even like direct message me about obviously my story, my symptoms, and they
yeah.
just say to me like, well, this is what I had. You've got a similar one like this. This is what I recommended. And literally, again, the support network has just been incredible.
Sometimes you get better help from strangers than you do the people you expect help from.
Yeah.
And sometimes GPs just want to get through so many appointments, they just try and get you in and out of there with a pill, with for whatever it may be. And I think that's something that needs to change. I think people need to be treated as human beings and looked at in on an individual basis, not, you know, it could be this. Really look at the individual and what they're going through and what they're experiencing, and give them treatment based on, those outcomes. And I think that's something that we can all improve in the UK. But the weight stuff, that's just people's opinions.
Yeah.
Opinions are like assholes. Everyone's going. So you don't need to let those type of things get you down, and you're surviving. So, last final two questions. After everything you've survived, what keeps you moving forward today?
It's my two nieces because I will get there. It's yeah, they're my nieces, but they're like my baby sisters.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't feel like they're protected sometimes or supported in the right ways. So, which makes me feel very protective of them.
Yeah.
And I always sit there and say, it's without them two in my life, I literally don't even know where I'd be right now. Because especially when, say, my mum passed, my
Yeah.
eldest niece, she was 14 at the time, I was 20. I couldn't even walk into the crematorium. And at a young girl, sorry, as a young lady of that age, she literally grabbed my arm and walked me in and showed me such strength. But they're both such incredible young women. But yeah, without them two, I literally don't know where I'd be in life.
And that's a powerful motivation to keep moving forward. So, finally, and it's always my favorite question to ask people, if the younger Dani was sitting across from you right now, what would you want her to know?
I'd want her to know that
Hmm.
you're going to go to dark places in a million years you never expected.
Yeah.
You felt hurt, rejection, pain, but that doesn't define you. It's you are mummy's warrior. She may not be around anymore, but by living obviously as she would with her morals and the way she is, I do actually say to people as well, it's like, you didn't need to meet my mum because she's sitting right here.
Hmm.
But I would say to her that you will get through it and everything will be okay. You will become this stronger version of yourself that you
Hmm.
probably didn't realize existed. And also, you're not going to be on your own for the rest of your life.
And that goes for other people as well. That
Exactly.
cannot just be for your younger self. That can be for everyone else. So I think that's a very powerful message that people can take some hope from. And I
Yeah.
think hope is in small. It's hard to get hold of hope, but that sort of message, puts out hope. And I think that's a very powerful message for people listening to the podcast. And I'm sure they will. It'll be live on YouTube and Spotify, so it'll be a good listen. It's a good message. And my final message would be that everyone's mental health matters. I think people need to realize that their trauma, their feelings are valid. What they've been through is valid.
Mm.
And I think some something that might benefit you in the future is investing in yourself via either more therapy or counseling or a life coach, because you've got an idea. Now you just need the mechanisms to put that idea together with your motivational speaking to be able
Yeah.
to move forward, and coaches can help with that. And the best investment you'll ever make is the one that you make in yourself. I made an investment in myself and got the diplomas and launched my business. Now it's time for you to make the investment in yourself and your future. You can be an amazing motivational speaker because you have courage, you have the experience, and you have the knowledge because you've been in all of those places. Some people are just visiting now. So I think investing in yourself is something that will make your future 100% a bright light. And I think we are all born champions, but some of us just haven't found our belts yet. And I think you are a champion and you will find your belt one day soon. And I'm sure it's in the motivational speaking. So I wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for being episode 3. Really
You're
enjoyed the
welcome.
conversation. Like I said, it will go live on YouTube and Spotify on August the 3rd, because I've got a backlog of videos to edit because I've got a couple of different channels. But I hope everyone resonates with your story. I'm sure they'll enjoy it. It's a great listen on Spotify. It'll be a great watch on YouTube. And that is the Quiet Battle podcast, episode 3 with Dani. I want to thank everyone for who's going to watch the video. Please get your comments in. Let us know what you thought of the podcast. And remember, everyone's mental health matters, and including yours. You matter, and your mental health matters, and the world's a better place with you in it. So thank you, Danny. Thank you to everyone else, and I will see you all soon on the Quiet Battle podcast.
Thank you.
Stop.